Hello, thank you for having me today, and I think this is actually a really great slot to have right after Paul, and where we started working together on various projects. So I work for Scottish Power Energy Networks, and within that I work for SP Transmission. So that is the transmission operator and owner for Central and Southern Scotland. We are responsible for designing, building and maintaining the transmission network. We're currently in a growth period of our business. Currently, we are obligated by Ofgem, our regulator, to be looking at about an annual spend of £200 million a year. Within the next 10 years, Ofgem will be looking for us to be investing £1 billion a year. So that is just a massive amount of growth. And when you're seeing that, you're also seeing that we're going to be working in very beautiful areas. And what we don't want to be doing is causing damage. We're now starting to see legislation coming around this. We have National Planning Framework 4, and we know we're expecting biodiversity enhancement legislation coming later this year. And all of that around with our own regulation means that we really need to be investing in nature and mitigating any of the impact that we have. So, the Use It or Lose It fund. As of yesterday, it's not a fund internally. So the fund is for SPT. Ofgem have given us £12 million to deliver biodiversity no net loss within our RIIO-T2 licence. The energy networks have 5-year price control periods where we put in a business plan to apply for funding from Ofgem. They approve it sometimes, and we then have that period to do that. This £12 million must be allocated to projects, and those projects are delivered by the end of March 2027. So by the end of March 26, I have to have all that money allocated to projects, and those projects have to be delivered by 2027. By that point, we'll be in the first year of our next price control period, which we will submit to Ofgem in December of this year. So we're really in a space where we have to tell Ofgem by December how much funding we're going to need for biodiversity enhancement for the next 5-year price control period that will run until 2031. So this fund, which is our fund, not yours, is a trial from ourselves and from Ofgem. We're the only transmission operator that got this during the T2 period. And it's to see, how do we deliver this? We know that there's probably going to be net gain legislation coming, but how, when we're not landowners, do we actually deliver these projects? So, our strategy is to engage with our local and national stakeholders to identify opportunities for biodiversity offsetting through strategic partnerships. We could have gone out and bought a great big whack of land, planted a bunch of trees, said we'd mitigated, got our big tick and said, look how great we are, and actually would have added no actual connectivity to nature. It wouldn't have had the actual impact it could have. Maybe I'm an idealist, but I want to do the right thing with this fund. I want to make sure that any of this funding, which is public money, actually makes a difference to the entire national and local strategic biodiversity enhancement of our country. So we follow the principles of biodiversity offsetting. So it will be used as a last resort after all our measures have been taken to avoid. So we minimise the impacts that we have as we're building our projects. However, if you're building a 400 kV substation, you're digging out a lot of peat. You're damaging forestry. It can be quite a damaging process. And when it comes back, we don't own the land around this. So to actually do it on our project site suddenly becomes incredibly difficult. So what do? We look local. We look to see what actually we can do and where we can actually offset to no net loss. We will be moving to then looking to net gain. We want to do like for like to compensate for the loss where possible. It's got to be carried out as close as possible to our projects. So for us, if the damage has been done in Dumfries and Galloway, we are going to offset in Dumfries and Galloway. So we're currently out with our projects that are included for the funding, and that's out with our consultants at the moment to figure out what is the loss that we've done. So we can then proportionally look at this money and say, in each of these local authority areas, this is how many biodiversity units we're now going to have to invest in the creation of. So probably the bit that you're all interested in is what do we expect from these partners organisations. So what we want to do is have partners that will deliver projects in line with local nature priorities and be able to provide ourselves with the expected uplift in biodiversity units. To actually do that, we will be using the modified version of the Defra Biodiversity tool. It's been modified for use in Scotland. The Defra version isn't appropriate for use at the moment. Using that modified version has been agreed by the Linear Infrastructure Environmental Management Group, very catchy title, and that has representation from SPN, from SSE, Network Rail, SEPA, ScotGov, Nature Scot, and it's been agreed that this is the right tool for us to be using for linear infrastructure within the country. We are expecting that there will be some kind of Scottish metric when we get the legislation, and we will then move to that. So what we'll be looking for is project delivery plans, including habitat plans. They should include at a minimum a description of the project that you would like us to fund. You know, what is the proposed biodiversity enhancement works? How does it link to those local strategies? The number of biodiversity units that the project is going to create, your costs, including your project management costs and maintenance costs to manage the enhancement up to a period at which target establishment has been achieved, or 5 years, whichever is less. So within these projects, we understand that when you get a lot of finance for projects, you're not necessarily getting your project management costs, you're not necessarily getting the maintenance costs. And trees are fickle. You plant them, they tend to die. So we want to make sure that as much of this gain is still viable and comes to fruition. It would also be looking for your project timelines, because that have to work within our regulatory periods. Essentially, we expect you to project manage them, deliver the biodiversity enhancement, and we will also be providing access to specialist ecological consultants to provide support in creating those habitat plans and running the modified biodiversity metric. We want to make it as easy as possible for organisations to have their projects funded, and it's easy for me because not only am I in charge of the biodiversity management for SPT, you're looking at the entire of the sustainability team. I'm it. So the less admin in my life, the happier that I'm going to be. So we have a pilot project, and Jim and Debbie managed to get this incredibly city-slicking Glaswegian girl down to Dumfries for the day, and has now really just... It was actually a lovely day. I mean, I normally am in the city centre, but, the countryside is in fact beautiful. So went down, and Jim has provided us with what's going to be our first project. So we will be creating riparian woodland. We're going to be doing 3.2 hectares. We've had a first stab at the tool, looking to create 9 biodiversity units, and with the 5-year maintenance period. So what we're really looking to do here is test out how this works for us and for the fisheries. We have lots of internal compliance and governance and legal. I am in the final stages of what's been an incredibly painful process, and hoping that in April, they haven't told me April, but I'm saying it publicly so they can't back out, that I will be able to get Jimmy's money, and we can actually start this out. And that helps us to learn, what went well, what didn't, what needs streamlined, so that when we actually start, speaking to, the other organisations, that it's streamlined, that it's easy, that it's quick. And this really links into, the work that Paul's doing, and we're working closely with Paul on various different options as well. So where are some of our projects? So these are 4 of our projects that all fall into the Nith's catchment. And as you can see, we've got everything from new wind farm connections to building brand new substations and overhead lines. Here, we're going to be building bridges over water courses to enable the civil works and the connections. We're doing underhead lines? That's not right. Overhead lines and underground cables. And again, a lot of this work does happen in a lot of the water courses. Galloway Fisheries as well. We have the Mark Hill cluster, where we're going to have 6 kilometres of wood pole, and then a further 11.5 kilometres of overhead line down to the Mark Hill substation. We've got the Lorg and Longburn grid connections as well in there. And then the Cumberhead cluster and Douglas North, which are new substations as well in there. And this is just some of our projects. We have a total of 35 new infrastructure projects that we are able to allocate this funding to. So we didn't want to bore you going through all 35, but if your catchment, trust, organisation is within any of these areas, please do get in touch. We're really hoping that, by the time we get to the end of summer, we'll absolutely be able to be speaking to you all and providing, funding for these projects. This isn't a fund in the traditional sense. This isn't going to be open to anybody to put in an application to. We are looking at strategic organisations like the Fisheries, like Peatland Action, RSPB, Buglife, organisations that have got the ability to engage with the landowners, deliver the work. And that's what we want to do, because we want to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck, because that's the best bang for buck for the customer, because actually every single one of you has actually paid for this. It comes off your electricity bills. So, many of you have asked for my card today. I don't carry a card. It's not very sustainable to have cardboard. Details there. Yes, thank you very much.